Hey friends, welcome back to video 2, and this is where we're going to get into thrumming. So this is where we're going to make our magic happen, so to speak. So something just to keep in mind, when you are doing your thrumming, just remember that this is a 4-stitch repeat. Knit, 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 4 is thrum. And that's why you want to be mindful of our cast on and how many stitches we have on our needles, because we want this number to be divisible by 4. Otherwise, our pattern's going to be off in some places. So make sure your stitch count is correct. I know my stitch count is good here at 36, and I know that's divisible by 4. I've made some thrums ahead of time because I don't want to do this one at a time, and I'm going to go ahead and start thrumming. So a couple ways to do this. First, if you like heart thrums, I'll show you how we do that. So I'm at the beginning of my round. I'm not using a marker because I know I'm at the beginning of my round because of where my little tail is ending up here. So I'm going to save that as a beginning of row marker before I start weaving in ends. And let's go ahead and start thrumming. So again, apologizing, sorry not sorry, for being a continental knitter. 1, 2, 3, and now we're going to thrum. So for heart-shaped thrums, you are going to insert your needle not into the stitch here, but into the stitch directly below. Go between the legs of both of those stitches, front to back. And now we're going to grab one of our pre-made thrums. Give this a little twist just so it's easier to handle as you're pulling it through. Lay it across the top of your needle. Oops. Lay it across the top of your needle, and you're just going to bring it to the front here. Now, with your working yarn, make sure your working yarn is going above that thrum and not underneath that roving. Knit that stitch, the 4th stitch, and then just like you were binding off in a traditional bind off, just carry that yarn right over the stitch that you just knit, that stitch number 4 that has been thrummed, and we'll give that a tiny little tug very gently. We don't want to warp our fabric, but you can see now we've got this like cute heart-shaped thrum happening here, and it's a repeat, so we're going to repeat it. We'll go 3, and this is our thrum. So again, the stitch underneath, which happens to be blue, go between both legs there. Grab one of your thrums, give it a little twist just to make it easier to pull through. Lay it across your needle, and then just pull it through that space. Get your working yarn above the thrum. Knit that stitch, and then pop that right over. Give it a gentle tug so it looks like a heart. There we go. And we'll repeat it. So this is generally easy enough to do just with your needles. Again, front to back under that stitch. But I find sometimes, depending on what I'm working with or where I'm at in my repeat, sometimes I like to use a crochet hook for this particular process to save myself some frustration. And I'll show you that in just a moment. Knit that stitch and over it goes. Gentle tug. And there we go. 1, 2, 3. Now this is 4. Now when the 4th stitch of my thrum repeat happens to be the last stitch on my needle, for some reason I always have a really difficult time getting that through. So this is when I like to use a crochet hook, and I'll put my crochet hook through the same space. So through that front to back, that stitch right underneath. Get my thrum roving here, give it a little bit of a twist, and then just get onto that hook. There it is. And remember, it has to go over the right needle. There it is. It's done. All right, so I can now knit that stitch and over with the roving. Gentle little tug. You can wait till you get to the end of your row before you give a tug. And then there it is. Now I've got 2 stitches left on this front needle here. So I'm going to turn my work so that I can knit across here now. carefully put these needles, they're going to be your left hand needle, your stitches on your left hand needle. Push that in very gently, and now pull out here, and this is your right hand needle for magic loop. 3 and then 4, front to back through the middle there. Over that right needle and pull it through. Knit that one stitch and over with the roving. Gentle tuck and away you go. So yeah, so that's basically it for your magic loop method for heart-shaped thrums. Let's move on to the dot-shaped thrums. Those happen to be just my favorite here. So I'll move this over and we'll get the dot shapes in here. Now I've got, oh, sorry for the noise there. I have some thrums already made. Okay, so I am going on the second half of this row here, for which I'm going to thrum. So I've already done 1, 2. This is my third knit stitch, and now I'm ready to thrum the 4th stitch. So instead of going right in between under the stitch, for dot shapes, I'm going to pick up this little leg here that's right between the 3rd and 4th stitch. I'm going to go through there, and then same thing, grab a thrum. This one's a little thick, but that's really too thick. I don't think I want to use that. And there we go, lay it across. This comes much easier through that space. I don't ever have to use a crochet hook with this method. I'm going to knit that 4th stitch, and then this comes right across. Now, dots don't always look completely like dots. They kind of look like slanted dots, and sometimes they look like hearts. Just be forewarned. And that's basically how that's done. So 1, 2, 3, again, between 3 and 4, pick up that leg, give your roving a little twist just to make it easier to handle, and in this goes here. Working yarn, 1 stitch, and over that goes. Okay, so you can see here that this is not my first row of thrumming, and I'm always doing the repeat. Your pattern is going to tell you your first repeat is knit 3, thrum 1, and you're going to repeat that across. The next row is going to be knit 1, thrum 1, knit 2. Knit 1, thrum 1, knit 2, which is a 4 repeat. So essentially it's, well, it's the same. It's just, described a little bit differently, but it lets you start off to give you this kind of even, staggered look here that just looks really pretty. If you have multicolored hand-dyed merino, don't worry about having any rhyme or reason to the color. There's really not intended to be, unless you're being really deliberate about it, but just enjoy and throw it in wherever you have. This is where I'm going to talk about something, and this is in terms of your practice as a knitter, in order to keep track of your work. Now, I know we all have the best intentions. Mittens are a great, instant gratification project because they're usually pretty quick to knit. But if for some reason you have to put this down for several days or several weeks or several months, heaven forbid, coming back to it, if you've made any changes to your pattern or to the size or your choice in needles, this is something you really want to keep track of. Because you're going to come back to it and you're going to be like, oh, of course I'm going to remember that change I made, and you're probably not. So what I like to do is I have a notebook that I dedicate entirely to knitting, and I'll put down the date that I started, the name of the pattern. If there is a designer or a book that it comes from, I'll write it down here. If it's a PDF that I own electronically, I'll write that down. I'm always going to do a gauge swatch, so I'll check my gauge and I'll compare it to that in the pattern. So here I've got, for example, 4.5 stitches and 7 rows is worked flat, and 4 millimeters is 1 inch. Now I'm going to keep track of how I've done my patterns. So per the instructions here, I'll look at this, and after I've cast on, I'm going to do the cuff. Yeah, cast on. I chose 36 stitches in 3.5 millimeter needles, which is what we're meant to do for the medium size there. And 5 rows is 1 by 1 rib, just like it's spelled out here. Then I'm going to switch to my 4 millimeters for my heart-shaped thrums, and then I begin my thrumming pattern. So row 6 and 7 is knit. I've got row 8, I've thrummed. So now I can keep track of how often I'm thrumming, because it's each 5th row hereafter. So I'll have rows 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And as I complete these, I'm going to put that these are knit. But when I come here, I want to remember that I'm going to be thrumming. Now, this doesn't seem like it's important right now, but when we do our thumb gusset, and that is to increase, to make our afterthought thumb, it is going to matter, because you want to keep track of which rows you're thrumming and which rows you are increasing. So this is where notes become really helpful, as do stitch markers. So I'm going to end this video here just for that, and the next one will discuss our increases and our afterthought thumb. Okay.